Hello, and welcome to the show. This is the Goodwind Podcast, and I'm Niko, your host. As always, thank you for being here. I appreciate it more than I can express without losing a sense of authenticity. Because when I see comments, when I see people engaging, negative or positive, it does warm me. And this kind of validation is truly enough for me to keep going and keep sharing. So thank you so much for being here. So recently I've been inspired to dive into my family history more so, particularly like my family tree. Like I didn't know my great grandparents' names until like last week. I knew a few of them. I was really fortunate. I had a great grandfather, Alberto Molinaro, Italian. Yeah, a bit Italian. And a quick tangent. Can you name any? This is a challenge. If you choose to accept, please do so. I'll see you in the comments. Can anyone name Italian wildlife? Is there such a thing as animals that live in Italy? I can't think of one mental image of what Italian wildlife would be. A pigeon? Pigeons. I think that's it. I'm not sure they even have squirrels. I think the squirrels said fuck it. Calamari? Frutte de mare? Is this the wildlife of Italy? Or is there just no such thing? Is it just people in old buildings? Olive trees. Besides olive trees and different assortments of pressed oils, I challenge anyone to name one animal that's native to Italy. Particularly a land animal. I really am not interested in hearing the Mediterranean starfish or salmon pescatore. And I'll literally wait. There won't be anyone. There's no Italian wildlife. There's no such thing. That's the conclusion I've come to. So my great grandpa Molinaro, I got to live with him. He was alive for like the first 7, 8 years, maybe less. 7, 8 years of my life, and he was just my memories of him are just so good. They're like my first memories. Like he had a stroke, and he had to move in with my grandmother, his daughter, and I would go over to my grandmother's house often to be watched, and he would give me a sword and just let me beat the shit out of him with a sword. Like a 4 or 5 year old, just, and my grandma would come down, stop hitting him, crap, stop hitting him. And he'd go, quiet, let the boy hit me. Let the boy be tough. It was always about the boy. So I had an older sister, and I have a female cousin who's my age, named Brienne. And the classic story of how he favored me and didn't hide. There was no hiding his favoritism for me as his great grandson. And one particular Christmas, he made my grandma, his daughter, he made her go out and buy me an entire Power Rangers Megazord, which was composed of 5 individual pieces, a Power Rangers gun that turned into a sword, like a wagon full of toys. And he made my grandma buy my sister, and he gave my sister and my cousin a pack of Disney underpants. So, so it was always about spoiling me, the boy. And maybe that's just of course I'm not mad at it. You might be, and I can see why. I don't even think I was comfortable. I think I remember like going in Christmas, going around in a circle, opening gifts, and like the girls were done, and I had like 10 more presents, and being like, and I just gave up because it was like so overwhelming. But that was my great grandfather. He loved me. He used to bring me to the Veterans Hospital. So as a little boy, I would go and hang out with all these like World War II vets. And I don't have any memories of the conversations we had, but apparently I loved it. So I had my great grandpa Molinaro in my life, and I had my great grandma Louise in my life, which was on my different sides of the family. So I've actually had 4 of the 8 great grandparents alive at some point in my life. So that might be rare, but I've really enjoyed learning. I feel so fortunate to even I have 3 grandparents right now, and I'm so glad that I was able to come to the point of maturity or appreciation for my family. And the history, and be able to bounce off and hear stories. My grandparents are still really with it. One of my grandmothers is kind of deep into Alzheimer's, and the conversation isn't there. But her husband's still alive, very sharp, Alfonso. And my other grandmother, Elaine, she's turning 90 next month. And still really sharp, but there is no buts. She was just... Is there anyone better than grandmas? Like oh my God. My favorite past lives that I've ever lived were the ones that I was a grandma. No doubt. No doubt in my mind. Being a grandmother has been the best thing I've ever been. Shout out to Tabiso. That's I kind of stole that joke from him, but he's a real G, and I couldn't agree more, because I've kind of tongue in cheek made fun of past lives things, because no one knows. I can go down these mental journeys. My imagination is so potent that you can have these past life experiences. Sometimes it's nice to think after, like, what happens after death, that it goes on, and there's evidence to support that. Not necessarily evidence of a pearly gated heaven, dance party in the clouds, but there is certainly evidence that things die, get eaten. The energy is not lost nor gained. It's not destroyed. Second law of physics, Newton. Energy is neither lost or destroyed. It's dispersed. So the energy can be dispersed and then help other things experience life. But in terms of like direct, like my soul leaves and goes to the next phase, and then maybe comes back to do whatever we're doing here, work, enjoy, heal, grow, experience, be. It's hard for me to grasp like reincarnation as a specific thing, but there certainly seems to be evidence that appeals to my logical mind that the energy will be dispersed and maybe can be experienced as consciousness in another way. I forget where I was going with that, but I didn't know I was going to be talking about post life. There's tons to unpack there, which maybe I'll formulate and get back into on another time. As always, I would love to encourage more comments, more participation, thoughts on any of this. Participate. If you do comment on TikTok content, there's a chance I'll include you in the show. Later this episode, I'll be going through another video, going through the comments, and it'll be a first read of the comments. No preparation, and we'll see where that goes. I've come to realize that I just seem to be a likely candidate for getting scammed, which is really tough. It's tough to come to those terms, but I seem to be like, I can get hooked. People know how to like hook me in. Like, I was on Craigslist, and I'm kind of always looking for a camper van. Like, it's been kind of a goal. I've bought a van in the past. It ended up needing way more work than I was willing to put in. It was an Astro van, and I ended up flipping it and making a profit. So I didn't end up creating a camper out of it. So I'm constantly kind of looking for camper vans, checking out the Craigslist and seeing what's popping. And one came up. It was like a road trek. It was a really cool one, beautiful pictures, and the price was low. It was like, it had 65,000 miles on it, low, and I think that the price was $1,000. So I was hooked, right? Email, hey, I'd like this. She said, great. I just went through I didn't even ask her how she got it, but she's like, I just went through a divorce, and I'm looking to get rid of it. I'll send you. I'm selling this through the eBay buyer protection program, so they'll reach out to you, collect payment. You'll receive the vehicle delivered, and you'll get to try it for 7 days before the money's processed through. I'm like, wow, great. This seems very professional. No red flags are going off. So I get the email. It asks me for a bit of information, my address. And then it said call to make the payment. So I called to make the payment, and I was a little off-put by the guy, and he said that I had to pay through gift card, Best Buy or eBay gift card. And I said, okay. And he's like, make sure you do it in 24 hours. And then I was like, okay, why the urgency? When some sense of urgency, building that is a good sales tactic, is a decent persuasion tactic, but it's also kind of triggering for me. So that plus paying through gift card, I'm like, all right, I'm going to look this up. So I look up eBay buyer protection program, because the document they sent me looked really official. And eBay, that's an actual thing. So I go to eBay's site, and it says things to be aware of. If you're not buying through eBay, if you're buying through Craigslist, it might be a scam. If the price looks too good to be true, it might be a scam. If the person mentions that they're going through a divorce or some sort of legal thing, it might be a scam. So literally all of the scams were listed off. All the red flags were listed off, and I'm like, damn it. I just feel silly after that. I feel I'm open, and I'm open to things working out, and I'm open to like the universe providing and manifestation and being, because like I have been blessed with things. But it also lends me to take risks that basically can get, so no harm, no foul, right? But But I was mad. I was so mad that I wrote a bad email back to the person who wasn't probably who she said she was. It was probably some dude trying to get $1,000 gift card to eBay or Best Buy. And this is shameful to admit, very shameful to admit, but it's true. So I'll admit it anyway. But I sent an email, eat shit and die. Period. That doesn't do anything. What? I had a little bit of joy thinking that they'd read it and feel the pain. But I regretted doing that. And I've made investments in the past that haven't worked out, over believing in people. And what the overarching lesson seems to be is whenever I want to give my power away, whenever I want to rely on someone else to do it and to just collect the rewards of it, I'm basically reminded, like, hey, this is your journey. Stop trying to give away your power. Stop trying to give away your money, your energy, without work and expect to be rewarded. Like it seems to have been like a learning, like an education tuition cost of like, man, like step into your own shoes, fulfill your own dreams. Stop offloading your responsibility and in hopes of getting rewarded. Like, the saddest part about investing into someone that doesn't work out is if I would have put the money into a project that I had control over and I failed and lost the money, that's one thing. But to put the money into someone else and have them fail, it's just like a double whammy. It feels so much worse. Because it's like, it's losing, it can contribute to losing trust in others and disappointment in myself for letting myself be misled. And almost as like a karmic feedback for sending that shitty email, like eat shit and die, I almost fell for another scam. So quick. I got an inbox. So my TikTok account is growing. It's growing every day. I think we're at 120,000 followers, over 1 million likes, millions of views, whatever. And so I got an inbox on Instagram. Hey, you may qualify for a verification check mark on your TikTok. Fill out this form and we'll get you your check mark. And I so close to I think my internet cut out and I wasn't able to fill out the form. And so I'm like, wait, why am I outsourcing this? Why don't I just try to get the check mark myself? I'm sure it's not that hard. I can just reach out to TikTok. Well, it turns out TikTok doesn't do a verification process. You can't submit a request. They give it to you when you get to a certain level of popularity. So I almost gave out like my email, my login information, and basically like put at risk this following that I've built in a way, yeah, by putting myself out there and by creating content that people jive with. Like, so what that made me do was I backed up all of my videos, which I've been meaning to do anyway, because people ask me to that series, Things I Wish I Knew Before I Was 30. They want me to compile them in a neat fashion so they can just watch them kind of one after another. So I'm going to compile them somehow into like 5 parts each and put those videos, I think, on my OnlyFans and Patreon. And yes, I started an OnlyFans. Yes, I started a Patreon and OnlyFans. And the links will be below in this episode. And if you do contribute, I would be, I'd be thankful. And what I'm going to do on the OnlyFans is I'm going to do some movement stuff. I'm going to do the breathing exercises that I use to get through treatment, cancer treatment, to regulate my mood day to day. Some of the mantras and some stuff will overlap. Like I give out tons of content for free because I enjoy it. But my point is that I'll make it more valuable so that it's actually there's something you're getting with a subscription to OnlyFans. And I don't know how naked I'll get. If that's what the people want, like, I'm not anti-nudity. It's just I feel like I have other things to offer than a penis. Maybe that's not true. Which brings us into the next topic quite well. As we all know, if you've watched an episode before this, retaining your semen is something I've been talking about. And I still love it. I'm not trying to put it down. I've gotten energized, not because of it. There's no science but in correlation with retaining my semen and also believing that I'm like keeping my chi. And I've been more interested in my girlfriend for a more sustained amount of time. And it's been empowering to know that I can like control, modulate whether or not I'm giving my chi away, giving my semen away. But let's talk about blue balls because it's real. Hey, this just in. Blue balls is real. And it'll affect your whole day. Or at least several hours of the day. Now, I dug into the book a little bit of some books about this. And what they say is that if you're not this is Eastern philosophy stuff. If you're not cycling your chi, then it basically builds up in your balls and, causes blue balls. So now during the sexual experience, when I'm holding the dam strong, I have to now, what am I doing? It's more of a feeling, but you're supposed to send that energy. I think I pull up on my perineum a little bit and I think about sending that energy up through my mind and cycling it back. It's called the Microcosmic Orbit, which you can look up, but basically it's pathways of chi throughout the body. And you're supposed to cycle this through. You're supposed to cycle the chi through. And that has seemed to help. What I think is a little bit more practical is I don't have to do sex for the longest ever. It feels really good, so I want to keep going. But if I'm constantly taking myself to the edge and then like clenching, there's this chance for blue balls. And then also I've just kind of decided that I'm probably just going to come once every couple weeks. I think I'm going to fall into that rhythm of once every couple weeks. And to get super personal and to reinforce like the retention thing, like look, you work with what you got, but when you're happy with what you got, as compared to other, like when I was and being 30 now, when I'm coming too much, my dick just isn't as hard. It's not as vibrant. But retaining, I have those really hard boners. And that's great. And I really, really like that actually. Because it opens up a lot of, play and positionality, exploration during the sexual experience. But the blue balls are real, and I haven't figured it out. But my strategy is to picture moving my chi with a little bit of perineum work sending it up and then sending it back down into my belly. Pretty much, your belly can store the energy. It's your fuel tank. And then from there, it can be cycled through the body as needed. And apparently you can learn how to do this. So when I'm building up all that blood or all that energy, all that chi in our balls, then I just have to, I'm thinking about cycling it through. And I'm also letting myself come a couple times a month. Literally, like one or two times a month. Every other week or so. So that needed to be said. And good luck. If you have any blue balls experience, I feel for you. I never had blue balls as a kid. Maybe I just never let myself get there. But even when I'd be teased or whatever, it just never, maybe not never, but I can't recall feeling blue balls as intensely as now that I'm practicing this retention thing. And so blue balls we talked about. I wanted to talk a little bit about, someone mentioned like how it's harder to retain. Why am I saying this? It could be false. It could just be, because it stuck with me. They said if you're circumcised, you have, it's harder. It's more difficult. Maybe you're more sensitive. Maybe that extra skin's a nice little padding to keep the sensitivity down. And what's up with Sandra Bullock saying she uses a product that uses foreskin, Korean specifically babies' foreskin? Is there a market for circumcision skin? Is that real? And I'm not looking to support that, but I am interested in the, if that's really a market, because it doesn't make sense. Where does it come from? Judaism? Why? Why? It's cleaner. No. We live in a world, we live in a world where running water isn't, if you're in America, it's not too far away. Maybe like for my parents to decide to circumcise me, they've had running water their whole life. We've had the ability to bathe our whole lives. Fortunate like that. So why? Tradition? For why? I seriously don't get it. Is it that much cleaner? Was it that much harder? Having foreskin, which evolved over the millions of years with the male anatomy, to clean it out? What's the history behind that? And that is his story. His story of circumcision. And I would definitely like to be illuminated on that. And if you can hear, there's a bit of resentment in my voice. I don't love the fact that I'm circumcised. Maybe it helped me when I was younger. I never really had to show my dick in locker rooms. I wouldn't have been called out. Maybe one or two women that I was with when I was super young would like say some bullshit because it's just out of the norm, but that would have been fine. I think I would have made it through. And I'm making it through even with a circumcised lifestyle. But I don't understand. And if there is a market for it, it seems... there's a lot of... Dave Chappelle he was on SNL this past week. And I loved something he said so much. And he talked about that the feeling of being unheard, unseen, uncared for, and the resulting violence, or the person that makes a person who feels unheard or unseen. And you can think about it at worst like a mass shooter, right? Violence tends to be desperate call for being heard or being seen, or it's an act of desperation. But what he said was so powerful, and it was, he doesn't allow himself, or he just doesn't hate that person, even the person who commits those egregious acts. The true enemy is the feeling that leads a person to being outraged. And when I think about this, less extreme than like a school shooter, which has clearly gone too far, but it's like the path to hell is paved with good intentions. There are so many things to get upset about. I think of like QAnon right now, and how there are children who are suffering in the world. There's no doubt. There's no doubt that there's children being taken advantage of, and they're suffering. And how certain members, how certain people feel when they find out this information is a bit helpless. Like, what can I do from here right now? Or even in my day-to-day life, or even in what's the plan it seems bleak. It's very difficult to overcome. So it can result in that feeling of rightness. We know what's right. Children to be happy and free and not be taken advantage of. Everyone's on board. Majority, everyone's on board with that. I'm going to say, I trust that everyone in their heart is on board with that. Children being happy and free. Now, the people that don't listen to their heart, or have blocked it off, or have hardened through trauma or through whatever, and do take advantage of kids, it's so easy to hate them, and I can see that too. I can definitely empathize with that. But what Dave said about hating the feeling of being taken advantage of, the feeling that leads you to do something so terrible, that's the true enemy. And it leaves room for people. It leaves room for forgiveness. It leaves room for empathy. And that's what I loved so much about what he said. And it was so refreshing for me to hear, because I've built up these resentments now, being 30 and allowing myself to get taken advantage of, and sending terrible emails to people. And I've lost my way on this. But it was a good reorientation. I'm not to allow forgiveness for the person and allow room for them to grow. And to really, if I was to pick an enemy, if I needed to pick a blame and a place to put it, it's the feeling that we can all empathize with if we look hard enough. It was very beautiful and very important for me to hear, very well timed. And so the resentment for why we circumcise kids, I'm not mad at my parents at it. I'm very healthy. I'm relatively happy. And it's been great. It's been a fine life, and it hasn't hindered me that much or at all. But maybe like the feeling of conformity, they did it to conform, or they did it because they genuinely thought it was the healthy, cleanly thing to do. Or they did it out of tradition because that's what was passed down to them. So I can kind of direct that resentment towards a more abstract idea, and therefore it frees up the relationship with the person. So the person's relationship and I doesn't have to be affected as much, because any of that resentment is put in kind of the overarching idea, the ether, which changes over time, slowly and surely, with patience and persistence. But dang, it's hard. And I feel for the people that, get overwhelmed with the amount of suffering that can be seen in this world and need to shout it out at the rooftops or post about it at length, because it's the only way they know how to process it. And I more than ever, I'm not mad at those people. I'm more accepting of the people, and I'm allowed to. I don't even have to block them. I don't have to push them out of my life in any way. Although at some points in my life that was maybe necessary, or it will be necessary in the future. But I'm less inclined to do so, because any resentment that I do feel is put more towards the abstract. Satan. Lucifer, the light bringer. The light bringer is a prince of darkness. And that energy, that is, you can find it if you look for it. And maybe you don't have to look for it. I mean, the shadow just is. In the world we've been given, the shadow just is. And this is an effort to not resist so that it persists, but to accept so that it's validated, so that the darkness can be validated through light. Things have been seeming worth it lately. I'm kind of on a high. This morning I was like, man, I feel really, really good. And like saying it out loud, I'm like, well, when you acknowledge it, you're no longer being it. And this was a frustration I had a lot of times. Is like, I'd be on a hike and with someone, and they'd be like, look how beautiful that is. And like, I just had the idea, I'm like, as soon as you're speaking how beautiful it is, you're no longer feeling the beauty. You're no longer connected with the beauty. You're connected with the mind's idea of it, or you're grasping at it through words. And of course that can be like, I'm talking right now, but how I orientate that is I enjoy this, and that's what I hope to convey, is a certain level of enjoyment. And education, almost, it has to be secondary or even tertiary, or whatever the four-ieri, quattrieri, quarterly. So what else did I write down? Balls in the mouth is too vulnerable. And the pleasure pouch of the male fupa. Do we get into this today? Maybe a little. Maybe a touch. Yeah, balls in the mouth, it's very vulnerable. Maybe a dab. Or a gentle hand massage. And the male fupa, don't be ashamed if you got a little belly. Maybe learn how to use it to engage with the clitoris. Hot take. And then I just wrote ass stuff. So prostate, orgasms, anal beads, I don't know. I'm not gonna speculate. Let's get into some TikTok comments. This kind of has been a helter-skelter one. So if you're sticking with me, I very much appreciate it. And this one looks pretty good. So this is from a video, Things I Wish I Knew Before I Was 30, part 21. And okay. This one is, I did this after the election. No one is coming to save you is the tagline, and then I go to describe it. Of course, it's up on TikTok, so please come and find it. Let's get into some comments here and reply to them. And again, I'm reading these, a lot of these the first time. I didn't go through them yet. But here we go. Stephen Hanks says, I've never had a safety net and learned early I had to earn everything. It's scary at first when you fully understand that. Success was my only option. That kind of reminds me of what I was talking about earlier, giving my power away. Yeah, I guess that correlates really well with this talk. I used to think people were like, man, if it's very recent, I'm finding a sense of sovereignty. Probably as old as this podcast, which is not very old. 3 months or whatever, less. And yeah, just waiting, giving my power away. I remember like the feeling of being younger and like shooting basketballs in a gym and wanting to shoot well so that if someone saw me, they would ask me to be on their, they would ask me to be in the NBA. Nayeli Desiree. It's very hard to pronounce, but their comment is, like Kali Uchis said, Uchis, Uchis, never heard of them. So if you need a hero, just look in the mirror. No one's going to save you now, so you better save yourself. Yep, that's what I'm saying. And I love when people reiterate the perspective from a different way, because all of these are truths. All of these videos would be mostly is going to be remembering or like reminders. Wisdom is like that. Wisdom's like, oh yeah. It's less like mind-blowing stuff. Goldenica says, my greatest is fear is loneliness. I've been on my own for so long, waiting for a guiding hand, only to realizing I am my only light. Yeah. I really dove into loneliness and the difference between loneliness and being alone when I went traveling to South America, not having known Spanish when I went down there, thinking I was going to get by with my English, only to go to a city that was almost all Spanish speaking, and contrasting and learning to understand the difference between loneliness and being alone. Being alone, it doesn't have to carry a negative connotation, but loneliness certainly feels that. Just Max BT said, nobody is coming. Probably not. Probably not, Max. Jax22550 said, you're like the older brother I've never had. Thank you for your advice. Uncle, I prefer uncle. I go by Uncle Niko, but you're welcome, nephew. That's the idea, is to be the older brother you never had. Dragonfly Speak said, where did you get that badass beaded lanyard? And I'll tell you. I have a friend who's in the Lakota tribe. His name's Ryan Badheart Bull. I'm going to send this to him, but because I'm shouting him out. He makes beautiful beadwork, and he posted some of this beadwork asking if anyone wanted it, and I claimed it. And I threw him some money for the shipping, and it came through, and it is it's so beautiful. I might have been wearing it in a previous episode of the podcast. Yeah, I think I was. So thank you, Ryan Badheart Bull, of South Dakota Lakota tradition. Old Laundry Man says, I'm 32 and I knew no one was ever going to be there for me. I was buying all my own food since 14, working $32 32 hours a week at McDonald's. My mom took my money. Thank you for sharing that. Yeesh. Man, you've been through it. People that have been through it, there's just the wisdom. I just hope they get to have the opportunity to explore wisdom if they're not just stuck on the Pavlovian hierarchy of needs. They're just not stuck in survival mode. I like to think that in America today, like even the most lowly of us will have some reprieve. Um, every dog does have its day, um, but man, I can't relate to that. That's rugged. Working since you're 14, 32 hours a week. Elizabeth Ken 1 says, this concept stems from a living in the bubble our parents created for us. The moment we step into the real world, that bubble pops. That might be true. That might be true. It could have been like the dependency on my parents, and being so fortunate and having parents that have provided for me all through growing up. It was maybe difficult to step out into that sovereignty. It was almost like a crutch. People talk about this all the time. Privilege can be a hindrance, and it could not harder or easier. I think it's also a head start. It's quite an advantage. But the challenge is then finding your sovereignty, even though dependency has been available. Like the previous comment, he has kind of thrown onto the world at 14. He didn't have the luxury of deciding when to become sovereign or not. It was necessity. It was survival. And that might make you better off if you could make it through. And Angel Voa 14 said, damn, that was good. I've been starting to think like this, and I have the ultimate say in what I feel and how I react and what choices I make. It's helping. Yeah, claim your responsibility and power. That seems to be the theme of this episode. The Big Moist said, for real, I learned this lesson when I was 19, changed my life forever. Blessed to learn it so young and to have the opportunity to grow from there. Bob the Man for you said, here's something new then. Groups are way more powerful than anyone. Good counterpoint. Good perspective. And I'm not saying don't be a part of a group at all. Community is necessary for humans. That's how we've evolved and stayed alive and grown, is through community. You best participate, you best serve a community when you have sovereignty, when you have your own personal agency. Any relationship that you're going to engage in is improved when you aren't codependent, when you have your own personal sovereignty, the other person has agency, and you guys can come together to collaborate without that need or without that desperation. But very true. We are pack animals. We belong in community. We need it. There's no doubt about that. Sextasy Chrome says, why do you always look sad? I'm not sure. I'm not always sad. I am sad sometimes. And I don't shoot the videos only when I'm sad. I did notice that I'm not necessarily funny. I can't always be funny, even though I love comedy and I love comedians. And I try still, but a seriousness seems to be more effective, or a calmness seems to be more effective in conveying messages or in speaking with clarity. And it's possible you're projecting, but yeah, maybe that's just my face, a resting sad face. I don't think so. Maybe it's something I'll consider. How about that? I'll bring a little pep when it's possible, when it's authentic. Thanks for that. Okay, quote Marianne Williamson on that last line, though. Madonna Baby said that. Don't know who Marianne Williamson is, but yeah, like I said, this wisdom stuff, I'm not making new ideas out here. If anything, I'm taking ideas, taking lessons, and compiling them in a fashion that might be new. But I'm not saying any new words out here. And if I am, it's very rare. This one hits the hardest series so far. Thank you. Ikito. Ikitto said that. And cool. I'm glad this one resonated. This is number 21, so make this shareable. Much respect. Quesarita says, I legit have been trying to cope while learning this the past 2 years, after being raised to think the opposite, and it's been the hardest thing. This is a tricky, what's on my mind is kind of tricky. There are parents, I imagine, that enjoy a certain level of control in their child's life. And I would even say that of my own father in some respects, not any longer, but as a parent, you sacrifice everything and you raise a baby that can't do anything for itself. So you do know what's best, or you try, to keep the baby alive, and that's the best. And relinquishing that power over time seems to be like the work of a parent. And when do you give, your child their sovereignty? Is it 13? Like when they become a man? They become a man. Like there are some people that'll try to keep you small in order to keep you consistent or keep a certain amount of power over you. And being able to recognize that and then break free, move past, put up a boundary is completely necessary. There's a quote that I kind of like. It's, every man must kill their father. And it's not literal, but the idea is eventually you have to step into your own shoes. You have to step into your own life, and that might mean doing something your father, and it'll most likely mean doing something your father doesn't agree with, because he can't possibly live the same life that you have. So to claim that your own sovereignty, to be your own man, you have to kill your father, metaphorically. Blusk a dude says, Disney in high school told us if we work hard and wish upon a star and cough, go to college. Yeah, is there a narrative out there to being saved? A little bit, yeah. I mean, princesses kind of did get saved, particularly in the earlier Disneys. It's kind of changed now. Yeah. Hero. I think most men watch like hero movies and kind of try to be the hero. No, I think this is just a people thing. Yeah, I don't know. There could be like lots of propaganda or stories that encourage you to think that someone will save you. And look, again, not knowing what's beyond this life, I tend to be optimistic on the largest possible scale. On the macro, I'm optimistic. So maybe we all are saved through death. It's at least a possibility. I certainly don't know. But this life can be tough. It can be suffering. And perhaps death is the gateway to salvation. So maybe we'll all end up being saved, is what I'm trying to say. That's at least a possibility. I'm not banking on it in my day-to-day, because that's on the macro. On the micro, day-to-day, it's going to be up to me to navigate my ship in the river of life. Veronica Caryes, with 2 A's in care. Nathaniel Brandon, 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. That's a recommendation. Vervian Witch 1 says, okay, where are you filming this? Heaven? Because take me, please. It's Wisconsin. Also known as the heaven of America. By no one. Maybe we'll do a couple more. There's tons. There's almost 400 comments on this one. So Lolita Maruris. She quotes a certain line that she said, taking responsibility for your life is the most important thing you can do. That's a quote from the video. I felt this deeply. Cool. Good. Heck yes. Gracias. Killer Pandas says, are you Spider-Man? Dude, I'm literally wearing a Spider-Man shirt. It's like my favorite shirt. I think it's the only shirt I wore twice on this podcast so far. And I don't want to repeat clothes for you guys. I want to change it up, but in a gross stance for authenticity, I chose to wear the same a similar shirt. Just so you know, real me. Yes, I am Spider-Man. He is my number one hero and my favorite. All right, let's do 3 more. Exile Celt 95. It's not just the most important thing you can do, it's the most liberating. Yeah, and that's why it's the most important in my eyes. Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Oh, nothing. You ain't nothing if you ain't free. Freedom is like my North Star. A sense of freedom. And any virtue can be, that can be an enslaving thought. Because we know that if you take any virtue to its utmost, it's faulty and becomes its opposite. But yes, you're onto it. All right, 2 more. A lot of lanyard love out there, so thanks, Ryan Bad Heart Bull. Nancy Pants says 7. Nancy Pants says, Disney lied to so many generations. Yeah, I'm in a Disney family. We love it. I think I went to Disney. There's still efforts to go to Disney World at 30, and now I appreciate it again. I remember when I was 15 and 16 and resenting it. Ugh, what a shithead I could have been back then. But it's they're storytellers. Is there an insidious side to Disney? I don't know. Are they greedy capitalists? Sure. Yeah, they've done a good job at that. At collecting lots of money and power. And the influence is something to be held to a check and balance. So, yeah, check yourself. Check Disney. Hey, do you ever think you'll upload your podcast to Spotify? Alberto Dizzy says, yes. In fact, I'm going to meet with a audio engineer this week, to improve the current podcast situation, to improve the sound quality, which I've gotten some feedback on, to maybe add some intro and outro music, make it just look more more complete. And another thing we're doing is we're separating the video from the audio, creating MP4s, so that I can upload it to Apple and Spotify. Because I do know people, they like to listen to podcasts in their car, and YouTube isn't the easiest platform to do so. So yes, what a perfect question to end on, because it's a little bit of selfless promotion, and I'm glad that it didn't just come from me. It came from the ether world. Whew. Thank you for everyone who commented. There's so many more comments, and I would love to get through them. I'm going to look through them all and respond to as many as possible. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your validation. And thank you to everyone who watches and supports this podcast. Again, if you'd like to support it financially or energetically, that is more than welcome. I do have a Patreon account, and I'm starting an OnlyFans account as well. So feel free to contribute to that. I will be eternally grateful for any and all contributions. This has been Niko. I love you so much. And I love myself as well. And I love you so much. This has been the Goodwind. Goodbye. No. Let's do that again. This is Niko, and this has been the Goodwind.